Hey Vikings Nation, brace yourselves, because what I'm about to break down today could shape the future of this franchise in ways we're not fully ready for yet. We're talking about a quarterback situation that's quietly turning into one of the most fascinating and risky stories in the entire NFL right now. And trust me, this isn't just another rumor floating around, because behind the scenes, decisions are being made that could determine whether the Minnesota Vikings build a dynasty or watch their future star shine somewhere else. And yes, it involves J.J. McCarthy, Kyler Murray, and a potential storm of trade scenarios that could explode sooner than expected. So the big question is, are the Vikings playing this smart, or are they walking straight into a nightmare scenario? Stick with me because this gets deeper, more complex, and honestly, a lot more intense than most fans realize. Let's start with the core of the issue, J.J. McCarthy. A young quarterback, just 23 years old, with limited NFL starts but massive upside. The kind of player you don't just give up on unless you are absolutely certain about your direction. And that's exactly why trading him right now feels dangerous. We've seen this story before across the league. Teams giving up too early on a young QB, only to watch him turn into a star somewhere else. That's the nightmare scenario nobody in Minnesota wants to live through. Because imagine this for a second. McCarthy develops into a franchise quarterback, but he does it wearing another jersey. That's the kind of mistake that haunts organizations for years, maybe even decades. But here's where things start to get complicated. The Vikings made a move that changed everything. They brought in Kyler Murray. And not just as a temporary option, but potentially something much bigger. Reports suggest that head coach Kevin O'Connell sees Murray as a possible long-term answer. Not just a stopgap. Not just a bridge quarterback, a real option for the future of this franchise. And if that belief turns into reality, everything shifts. Because if Murray performs well and earns an extension, suddenly McCarthy becomes expendable. And that's when the trade conversations go from maybe to inevitable. Now here's the twist that a lot of fans aren't talking about enough. There is no guarantee Murray stays. His contract situation gives him control over his own future. That means the Vikings can't just assume he'll be their guy long-term. If he balls out, he could test free agency. And if that happens, Minnesota could find itself in a situation where they traded McCarthy and lost Murray. That's the kind of double-loss scenario that destroys franchises. And it's exactly why making a move too early could be a massive mistake. So right now, trading McCarthy doesn't make much sense. The risk is just too high, the uncertainty is too real, and the potential regret could be enormous. But here's where things get interesting. There's still a chance, small but real, that McCarthy could be traded before next season. And if that happens, the market is surprisingly limited. At this moment, only a few teams actually make sense as trade partners. Not because McCarthy lacks value, but because most teams either already have a plan or are waiting. And that's important. Timing in the NFL is everything. And right now, the timing just isn't ideal for maximizing McCarthy's value. Let's talk about one of those teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers. A franchise that always seems to be lurking when it comes to quarterback situations. They're currently in a holding pattern, waiting on a decision from a veteran quarterback. And while they have a young player they like, there's no guarantee he's the long-term solution. That opens the door just slightly for a move. But it's not a slam dunk. Not yet. Then there's the Arizona Cardinals. Their current quarterback situation is, let's just say, far from settled. They're juggling options, possibly looking toward the draft, and trying to figure out their long-term direction. That uncertainty makes them a potential landing spot for someone like McCarthy. But again, it's not a perfect match. It's more of a wait-and-see situation. And what about the Cleveland Browns? On paper, they might seem like a fit, but internally, they appear to be delaying any major quarterback decision. They want to evaluate what they have before making a move. That likely takes them out of immediate trade discussions. So when you step back and look at the landscape, there just aren't many strong options right now. And that actually works in favor of the Vikings. Because here's the big picture, and this is where things get really exciting. Next year, the market could explode. We're talking about potentially 9 teams that could be searching for a quarterback. 9. That's a massive shift from where things stand today. And when demand goes up, so does value. That's basic NFL economics. Think about teams like the Jets. They don't have a long-term answer locked in. The same goes for the Steelers if their current situation doesn't pan out. Even teams that seem stable today could be looking for change. Situations evolve fast in this league. Then you've got franchises like the Giants and Saints. They're in prove-it situations with their quarterbacks. If things don't go as planned, they could be aggressive in the market. And a young, talented QB like McCarthy would instantly become one of the most attractive options available. Don't forget about teams like the Buccaneers and Rams. Contract situations and aging veterans could force their hands sooner than expected. And when that happens, they won't just be looking, they'll be desperate. And desperation drives up trade value. Even teams that seem set, like the Texans, could face tough decisions. Contract extensions, salary cap pressures. It all plays a role. So suddenly, the Vikings could go from having limited trade options to having leverage over half the league. But there's another layer to this story, the upcoming draft class. And it's loaded with quarterback talent. That could impact McCarthy's value, because teams might prefer a rookie over trading assets. However, not every team wants to start from scratch. Some prefer a young QB with NFL experience already under his belt. And that's where McCarthy becomes incredibly intriguing. He's not a complete unknown. He's a developing asset with real upside. So the Vikings are sitting in a very strategic position right now. They don't need to rush. They don't need to force a move. They can wait, evaluate, let the market develop, and then strike when the timing is perfect. And that might be the smartest move of all, because patience could turn a good return into a massive one. But here's the question I want to throw to you, Vikings fans. What would you do? Would you hold on to McCarthy and trust his development? Or would you bet on Kyler Murray and prepare for a blockbuster trade down the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those decisions that could define the future of the Minnesota Vikings. And if you're loving this kind of deep dive into Vikings news and rumors, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other fans who need to be part of this conversation. Because trust me, this quarterback story is far from over. And when the next big update drops, you already know we'll be breaking it down right here. Skol.